Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's your boy Beaky, and I have returned for another deck build for your entertainment. And for today, I wanted to actually tackle something I've not done on the channel very often. Assassin deck. Yeah, guys, if you notice, I usually don't play a lot of assassin decks, and I don't play a lot of last grass decks. And with that being said, I wanted to put something together and play something you guys haven't seen from me very often right before their new expansion comes out. Now, this deck obviously won't be very viable in about 2 weeks when every new card comes out and change up the meta and change up the game, but as you guys could clearly see from the win ratio right here, I went 14-2 from the newest version of the deck that I'm going to show you guys in a second. So 2 loss out of 14 ranked matches is definitely not bad, and I even have more win of that when I had an earlier version of the deck, which I will talk about once we take a look at the deck build itself, and we'll do some live gameplay for you guys today because it's been a while since I've actually done that. Just come on here, show some gameplay, let's have a few matches. But I do want to ask you guys an interesting question. Now that I'm thinking about trying things I haven't tried before, how about updating some older decks? I have some werewolf starter decks out there. I have some more advanced control decks out there. I have support decks out there that I've put up on Legends-Decks, or you guys can go ahead and look into my playlist on the channel and see all my deck builds. I was thinking with the new expansion coming out, instead of really focusing on making new decks featuring a lot of these new cards as the centerpiece, how about taking some of those new cards and incorporating some decks that I might have made even a year to 2 years ago and see where that could actually help us out growing in Legends. Updating older decks. Do you guys think that's something you want to see? We take a deck that's been established and been good in the past and see if we can actually make it good again, because the game has changed with new expansion, new cards, new nerfs along the way, or new buffs. I thought about it as something fun. We could do another series like updating the old. I don't know the name of it, but if you guys think of something else to name it, I will be more than willing to try that out if you guys want to see it. But anyways, let's get into the deck build itself and then jump into a few matches and show you guys what this deck is all about. So the deck name is 9. I have no clue why it's named 9, but that's what it's named. It doesn't really matter. And looking over, it's a 50 card dual attribute deck. I know there's some controversy right now about dual attribute decks and if they're good, but if you guys saw the win ratio, currently they're still fairly viable. When the new expansion comes out, we'll see. Now, if we want to look at the deck right now, it clearly is a last grass deck. We call it a Spy Master here. We definitely have Mastermind, a card I don't play very often, but it overall is an aggro-based deck. Let's go ahead and break it down real quick. So we run in 2 Corsair ships. The Corsair ships, you summon a creature, they get a dagger, and when you play the card, you also get a 1/1 Corsair that also gets a dagger. We don't need 3 of these. Some supports 2 is perfectly fine. You throw this out there. This gives you a creature that you could either use with Cruel Fire Bloom or attack with itself. So that's perfectly fine with me. The creature is just an extra bonus on top of the daggers. You want these daggers not to be super aggressive. It is an aggro, but it's not super aggressive. You want these daggers to go on things like Avenger. When her last grass effect happens, you get another creature. That's another dagger played out there. Same thing over here. Daggers on both creatures once their last grass effect happen. Cliff Racers, that makes it a 5/4. Excellent card right there. When you get out somebody like Mastermind, Mastermind effect happens instantly summon. Now it's a 6/4. That's actually a fairly decent card for a 5 magic right there as just a big body. So I'll take that with the last grass effect. We have Sails Through the Storm. We'll talk about this in a second, but don't worry about it. If you want to remove it, you can, but we'll talk about why that's there, and we'll talk about why Elizabeth is there. No, Queen is here right here. Not Elizabeth. She's not freaking Queen Elizabeth, but the Queen is here and why she's in the deck. So let's go over the beginning though. Brutal Ashlander, bam, early game card. When it dies, you go ahead and hit for 3. Great card. It's RNG. You're not sure exactly who it's going to hit, but it's been in my favorite. Drain Vitality combos with SharePoint Dragon. You're not here to control with SharePoint Dragon. You're here to remove guards and hit creatures out of your way that just might be having lethal, just easy early game creatures. You're going to have some type of effective way to remove them, and that's what Drain Vitality and SharePoint is here for. And you can't be afraid to use your Drain Vitality early on in the game, even before SharePoint Dragon comes out, because remember, we're not here trying to play this match for 10 to 20 minutes. We're trying to get in there, win the match, and move on to the next match as quickly as possible, especially if you're trying to climb the ladder. Shadow Mirrors combos very well with Corsair ships. ship, and it's just a card you can keep in your hand to later in the game when you just need that extra one little damage to combo off like a Cliff Racer to win the match with the lightning bolt, which is something you're going to be doing. You're going to be basically saving your lightning bolts more or less if you can to actually help with that end game damage when you have 4 health left, or if your opponent has 8 health and you play out a Cliff Racer at 9 magic, it'll go ahead and win the match. You're not using your lightning bolts most of the times as removals. That's why we have the Drain Vitalities. That's why we have the Brutal Ashlanders as ways to remove cards. That's why we have my new favorite Murkwater creature, the new one that was just released with the monthly reward. I like this a lot better than Murkwater Shaman. Plain and simple, this card instantly gives you value once it's summoned. Hits the field, boom, gives you a curse. When it dies, gives you a curse. Combo that as well with Mastermind, you have yourself a pretty good, decent 4-drop, even though it's 3/1. I like it a lot. You don't have to wait for its effect to happen, and you don't have to worry about your opponent removing it and you get no value out of it at all. Piercing Twilight is one of our only 2 guards in the game, both being 4 costs. As you guys see, we have a lot of 4-cost cards, and usually this is one of the reasons in the past I don't like to build Assassins. I don't like to have too many 4-cost cards, but Assassin is one of those decks, if you play it right with a Mastermind and the Last Grasp, it could work out pretty great. Any one of these 4-cost cards, if I get them, they're going to be useful in one way or the other. Kismin, we all know how Kismin work. Come on, guys. Play this down there. It's going to get to attack maybe once or twice in most cases before most opponents remove it. A lot of time people let this card sit there for a little too long before they get rid of it. And that's why I kind of like this card right here. I don't know why. It's just something I've noticed. People don't usually try to get rid of it right away because, once again, it gives us health and it takes health from the opponent. So sometimes you get to keep this card for a little longer than you probably really should be able to. So I like to usually play this in the left lane because people will usually leave this alone for far too long. And by the time it's still sitting there, then I get to play into Mastermind and I get the effect to have happen basically twice until it dies, you know. Then we have Alchemist. I love this card. I've fallen, this is kind of the inspiration of this deck. I've kind of fallen in love with this card in the last month, just incorporating different decks, and it made me really think, like, why have I not been playing this card before? Like, the RNG factor of getting any random action is completely random, but that's a free card right there for a 3/2 3-drop. Like, I don't see a negative. I've not seen any negative effect from this card. Most of the times, the cards that I get are going to be useful. Most actions in Legends are actually fairly useful. It's like spells in Skyrim. You know, they're usually pretty good and pretty fun to play with. So I've been having a great time with this. It's very rare that I get a card that's been completely unusable from him, and I feel it's a good value, especially if you're playing in the Last Grasp deck. You already know how she works. Lightning bolts, you're going to keep the lightning bolts, hopefully to win the game. Cliff Racers are there to do Cliff Racer does charge, win the game. Leaf Lurkers are for those big creatures. If the match gets a little too long and you need to go ahead and take out a big boy, well, this is what you're going to use that for right there. Ice Storm is something I couldn't. This is what actually changed the deck for me, because before I got to the 14 matches with the 12 wins, I was messing around with this and I just didn't feel it was consistent enough against token decks. People who are just summoning lots of creatures, or agility decks, or red decks that's gonna go out there and mob the field really early, because we're not gonna be mobbing the field very quickly. It's just not how this deck is actually designed early on. So Ice Storm just felt so needed because Drain Vitality was nerfed to the point that it only could target one lane once it's at level 3. So I needed Ice Storm to get rid of those mobs of creatures so I could start back on the aggressive effect. Of course, it helps as well if I have Spire Master, or it could help activate some of my Last Grasp ability, but it's not there for that. It's really out there for those token decks that really gets in your way, and it's been really annoying. And once I added in 2 Ice Storms, it just felt like it felt more consistent to me because I had that extra layer of removal. Before I had Ice Storm, I had another Brutal Ashlander, which was definitely helpful, and I had another Corsair ship. But then I realized I never want to play out. If I'm playing 3 Corsair ships in a match, that seems like, well, I should have probably already won that match. That's how it has felt to me. So 2 is about as much as I need in a deck, and usually 1 will get the job done. We're not really trying to sit here all day playing out daggers. We're trying to hit, and be smart about it while we're playing against our opponent. Now, talking about the Queen and talking about Sails Through the Storm. So what about these cards right here? We're going to get to these cards in a moment. Queen is a bait card. It's not a card you're going to be using to actually gain the health effect. use Queen to turn Spy Master or Shadow Mare or Kismet into guard. That's usually what you're going to do. You're not going to usually just play this card out with no other creature as well to turn them into guards. Like, that's going to be the only other way to get to more guards other than these two right here, because you don't have a lot of defensive options. Usually your opponent's going to go ahead and target this creature, lightning bolted, crushing blow. They're going to get rid of this piercing javelin, casting the time. You guys all know the ways you can get rid of the card like this, because they don't want you to gain back 6 health, because that's going to make it harder for you to take out. But while they're wasting their action taking out Queen, you're going to be able to attack with your Kismet or anything else if you're already played out beforehand. So don't play this as a way to gain health, because you're just not going to gain that much health. You won't be able to more or less attack maybe once with this before your opponent, who are playing smart, get rid of it. That's just what's going to be happening. You'll get most of your health back from Kismet and playing into Mastermind or so on and so forth like that. All right, guys? Next up, we have Sail Through the Storm. Once again, another bait card. Most of the times, you're not going to get a chance to attack and get the pillar for effect from this, but your opponents will use their removal for this, their silence for this. A lot of people will love to hit you with silence with a card like this, but then it just becomes a 5/5 body, and I mean, I could live with that. It's not the greatest body out there, but the other effect of this card is it usually makes people panic. People like to freaking just forfeit